Our next speaker is Andrijana Gavrilović, and she will tell us a little bit about global initiatives at the United Nations level. How do they see they could square this AI dialogue on ethics and governance of the AI? So I would like to see if Andrijana Gavrilović is here and if the presentation is ready. She's the head of diplomatic reporting at DIPLO Foundation, who's also based in Geneva. Okay. And we have the presentation here, so it's perfect. Andrijana, the floor is yours. Welcome to DESCON.
Thank you. 5 minutes ago, you told me I'm not the next person to speak, but, you know, such is life, I suppose.
Magic happens.
Not sure I'd call it magical, but okay. So up until this morning, I was under the impression that I have 30 minutes to speak, and then I saw that I have 15 minutes to speak, which I think taken together with this surprise means that hates me personally. Joking, darling.
Take your time.
I'll try not to be too exhaustive, but I'll also try not to be too short, as this is not, this is going to be a bit convoluted, you will hear, but I hope that you will be able to follow along. So as Des said, we're going to take a look at what's happening at the UN. Things always move a bit slower at the UN, such as the nature of things. You have a lot of countries joining at the same time to discuss something, and that's really not easy to organize. And in 2023, more or less, the United Nations Secretary General, so like the big guy, the big boss, said, okay, well, what are we going to do about AI? How are we going to govern it? Do remember that when we talk about the UN, we are frequently talking about state representatives that have no clue. Or they have some clues, or they have some clues about certain topics, but you have representatives that today are attending a meeting on AI, tomorrow are attending a meeting on climate change, the day after that, they're attending a meeting on cybersecurity. There's no way these people are experts on everything, right? So that's what makes the UN a bit complicated, let's say. And in 2023, in October, the United Nations Secretary General decided to establish this high-level advisory body on AI. And that body was basically supposed to advise the UN system on how to approach AI governance. So the motivation behind this was, I think we've all heard, so there's a rapid maturation of AI systems. There are fragmented governance approaches across countries, across sectors. There's this risk that a few jurisdictions or actors could dominate AI development. We're talking here, of course, the US, the EU, China. And of course, we've heard everything underneath the sun about AI's dual potential. It's great, but it's also not great. So we already know that. And this advisory body that had 39 members from 33 countries, so remember 193 UN countries, this body had 33 countries represented. So still not the most representative, but you know, not bad. This body worked through a highly consultative status. This might be important for us, as I figure we're not very governmental actors here. More than 2,000 participants from all regions took part in over 50 consultation sessions with this advisory body. 18 deep dive expert discussions were held. And the body received more than 250 written submissions from more than 150 organizations and 100 individuals. And what they came to was this final report. Well, there was an interim report, but let's focus on the final one. And the final report said that the global governance of AI is deficient, so it's fragmented, it's nascent, so it's barely starting. Many states are not engaged. Then they noticed that AI is dominated by, the governance of AI is dominated by a few jurisdictions or corporate actors, that AI is evolving rapidly, and they called for UN member states and stakeholders to collaborate and to coordinate when it comes to AI governance. And in this report, they came up with 7 recommendations. One of them was to establish an international scientific panel on AI. So its role would be to provide impartial, reliable scientific knowledge about AI. This panel would help member states share and develop a shared understanding of AI and address information asymmetries between AI labs and the rest of the world. And the panel is supposed to have these annual reports on AI capabilities, risks, and trends, alongside ad hoc reports on emerging AI risks. So a lot of work there. And to foster common ground, the advisory body said, okay, let's do a new policy dialogue on AI governance to foster common ground and a regulatory interoperability that's like rooted in human rights. And this one is, at its core, multi-stakeholder. So it's not only intergovernmental, it's also multi-stakeholder, which is interesting for a UN process. Then the advisory body said we should also have an AI standards exchange, which will ensure technical interoperability of AI systems across borders. Then they also said, well, we need some common benefits. So we should create a global AI capacity development network to boost AI governance capacities. We should establish a global AI fund to address gaps in capacity and collaboration. Foster a AI data framework, which will be global and will standardize data-related definitions, principles, and stewardships. And at the end of it all, they said, well, someone needs to coordinate all of this, so let's form a small AI office in the UN Secretariat. Oh, that sounded wonderful, didn't it? And these recommendations were supposed to basically feed into the preparations for the Summit of the Future. And the Summit of the Future was specifically supposed to negotiate the Global Digital Compact. Now, I'm not sure if you know much about social theory, but the theory of a social contract says that, very simplified, we as individuals are in this implicit theoretical agreement between each other and with society that we will cooperate for social benefit by sacrificing some of our freedoms. So what does that mean? For instance, one of the theories that you must have heard, we as citizens said, okay, the state will protect us, we give the state the right to protect us, and in turn we will not murder each other. So that's a very, very, very simplified Hobbes. For instance, so that's the theory of social contract. So we are socially contracted together to live in a society. And it's an implicit one. This is very highly, highly theoretical. It's a political theory. We're, of course, not actually signing contracts with each other. But the UN noticed that times are changing. And perhaps we need now a digital contract. And that's how they came up with this idea of a global digital compact. So it's a new social contract for the digital age. And it was adopted last year in September at this Summit of the Future. And it basically said how several of the concrete entities that were proposed by the advisory body will be implemented. It appointed 2 co-facilitators. Yes, everything is complicated, I know. To identify through an intergovernmental process, but also in consultations with other relevant stakeholders, how these 2 bodies are going to basically look. So the scientific panel is going to have 40 members. Its main task is to issue evidence-based scientific assessments synthesizing and analyzing existing research related to opportunities, risks, and impacts of AI. So basically, they're going to have one report a year that's going to do all of these things. And this report will be presented to the global dialogue. Now, the panel has has had an open call for nominations, and unfortunately that call was closed on the 31st of October. So unless you already applied, tough luck. But the Global Dialogue on AI Governance was launched in September, and it's a platform to discuss international cooperation, share best practices, lessons learned, and to facilitate discussions on AI governance, and to see how AI can contribute to implementing the SDGs, so Sustainable Development Goals, and how it can help close the digital divide. It will convene annually for up to 2 years. The next time it will be in Geneva in 2026, at the margins of the AI for Good Global Summit. And in 2027, it will be convened on the margins of the Multi-Stakeholder Forum on Science, Technology, Innovation in New York. And this second dialogue is important because it envisions intergovernmental consultations, but also it envisions contributions from other stakeholders. And these are very important as they will be input to review the Global Digital Compact. So you see it's all coming back to that. And this is very important because the previous versions of the Global Dialogue basically saw intergovernmental negotiations only. So this is quite a space for stakeholders that are not governments, so non-governmental stakeholders to participate. And of course, states are always encouraged to support the effective functioning of any new UN mechanism by facilitating the participation of representatives and stakeholders, particularly when it comes to developing countries, which is important for our context. Now, these are very high-level initiatives, but I'd like to talk now about something that's a bit closer to the average user, let's say. It's still in the context of the UN, but this is in the context of the Internet Governance Forum. Now, the Internet Governance Forum is the biggest gathering on Internet governance that there is, a multi-stakeholder by that, I mean. So it's an annual thing, but it also has intersectional activities, and one of them is the Policy Network on AI. This is a multi-stakeholder policy network that operates within the context of the IGF. And its goal is to engage all stakeholders globally to explore AI policy questions, generate research, highlight thematic issues, and feed into broader governance processes. So it produces annual reports and policy briefs. There's a lot of reports. It convenes thematic subgroups and engages stakeholders in these subgroups. It offers a channel for shaping global conversation, basically, from the ground up. And it emphasizes in its work liability, so how to attribute responsibility for AI harms, interoperability, how AI governance mechanisms, standards, rules can align. It emphasizes sustainability, so what's the environmental footprint of AI systems, energy use, materials. And it also emphasizes labor or work, so how AI will affect jobs, work organizations, skills, equity, transitions. So I've told you a lot of complicated things, and I hope that you managed to follow at least some of it. And there's quite a lot of things that I didn't say, and I think it's better that way. This is just really a very quick overview of things that are happening at the UN level when it comes to AI governance. But really, what does that mean for all of us? So the Global Dialogue is a multi-stakeholder forum. So it means everyone can participate, people from civil society, academia, tech sector. We can all influence how AI governance norms develop. So it's not just a club of countries. And that open call for scientific panel, which was open for a few months, also made participation quite tangible. By linking these two, the panel, which is basically science, and dialogue, which is basically policy, these UN processes help they help translate high-level principles into concrete regulatory guidance. And this is important for national governments that are creating AI laws or even for regional efforts. For us, for practitioners, for the tech community, for civil society, what I just mentioned, the Policy Network on AI, is quite an accessible channel to engage in global AI policy processes. It's very simple to join the Policy Network. You just join the mailing list, and they will let you know when the next meeting is. Boom, done. Much easier to join than any of the other processes that I had mentioned. And the Policy Network does give a direct channel to feed insights into global AI discussions. It's designed for exchange between practitioners, regulators, and experts. It's an opportunity to compare approaches, to see emerging norms before they become regulation. It's a chance to learn what the cutting-edge governance debates and tools are, to be able to advocate more effectively, of course. Their outputs, like discussions and reports or recommendations, can help attendees apply global principles locally, regionally. You can meet other stakeholders. This can lead to projects and collaborations or co-creation of tools that advance responsible AI. And being part of the network basically means that you have early access to the newest ideas on the frameworks and the norms before they are widely developed and adopted, and it means you can basically influence them proactively. So I'd stop here. Are there any questions? I really did run through this. Yeah, go ahead.
About the open calls you mentioned, about the participation in those talks, are there any requirements about maybe technical skills or qualifications looking for? And how is there an entry barrier maybe to those talks?
Okay. So I did say that the call for the scientific panel is now closed. There were quite some requirements for that one. Very briefly, the people that submitted their nominations will then be judged, and then the Secretary General will basically anoint them, and then the UN General Assembly is going to confirm all of that. So that's quite complicated. And to be fair, I don't think, I'm not sure how much it will be about expertise. It should be, considering that the work should be scientific. But there is always an element of politics in how well you play and who do you know when it comes to processes like these. When it comes to the global dialogue on AI governance, no, nothing is required. You can just participate, and even less is required for participation in the policy network.
Let's see if there are any more questions for Andrijana. If not, I'd like to thank you so much for taking us through these UN processes and mechanisms, and we're seeing some openness in these processes, which signifies a change. So with that, I'd like to give applause to Andrijana, and thank you so much for taking us through. A huge applause. It's going to take a couple of minutes for our next speaker, Urs Gehrig, to set up his presentation. Because, so you may want to stretch your hands or or use the bathroom stop. Before we do a small setup, there will be a couple of animations in the presentation itself, so it will take probably just a couple of minutes. Don't go too far.